What's up guys, Anklespankin here, and today we are trying something a little different than what you might usually see on my channel. I am going to be going over with you guys the intro to the mid-season 2017 changes. Basically, this will be a video that offers a couple of my own thoughts and substitutes a summary for you guys needing to read all these changes yourselves. So instead, you can just watch this or listen to this video, because it'll pretty much just be me talking the whole time. So basically, the intro to mid-season 2017 changes are going over the Rift Herald changes, the tank update changes, the tank reworks, and support items and a couple item changes. Now, if you want the specific item changes, such as values or what the new items actually do, Red Mercy has a phenomenal video on that. You guys can definitely go check it out if you haven't seen it yet. So without further ado, let us dive right in. The first change that they wanted to display for us was the Rift Herald changes. As of right now, Rift Herald, when you kill it, drops a buff that lasts for 20 minutes. And this buff makes you very hard to lane against. And because Riot has decided that's not a healthy way to have the game in a state, they're changing it. Now, they are ditching the buff approach is what they're saying here. And what it does instead is when you kill the Rift Herald, it will drop an item called the Herald's Eye. Now, holding this item will enhance your recall. And the enhanced recall, all that does is makes a 4-second channel as opposed to an 8-second channel, just like when you have Baron buff. The other use of this eye item that you get is that when you use it, it will run down the lane that you are currently in and work as basically a gigantic siege minion. Now, this Rift Herald is the exact same as when it's in the pit, except it will not attack champions, it will only focus structures. And you kill it the same way, poke it right in this little, poke it right in the little back eye, the little thing right there. And apparently, as it has lower health, it does less damage. But do keep in mind it can still do damage with AoE. So that is basically all the changes for that. Next up is the tank updates. The three big tank updates here. We got Sejuani, Maokai, and Zac. With Sejuani being the first and probably the most changing of any of the three champions they're doing so far. We'll go over that. The only reason that they're not mentioning some of the other champions is because they are not on such a wide scale for changes. They're just small changes, such as a Mumu's change where they just change his passive. So those aren't mentioned here. These are the major tank reworks. Sejuani is the one we are going to be starting with. Sejuani is getting her passive changed, I believe is what they're changing, and basically all of her abilities. Her ultimate was basically the only reason that Sejuani was even worth anything as a champion. Glacial Prison, when you threw it, was probably the most team-fighting influential ultimate in the entire game, having a massive AoE and a massive stun. But the drawback with that is that Sejuani as a champion does not really have any uses outside of her ultimate. So they're rearranging that. They are taking some of the power off of her ultimate and placing it back into her kit. Now these changes, one of the biggest ones that's really going to be key to how the champion is played is her passive Frost. Apparently Sejuani and her melee allies apply Frost to enemies, and it's supposed to be similar to Braum's passive, but unlike Braum's passive, Sejuani does not need to be the one to start the stacking. And then once a target has actually reached max stacks of this passive, Sejuani can use her permafrost and point and click stun the target. So, and apparently if she attacks a frozen target, it'll actually shatter it, doing major damage. Think Sub-Zero from Mortal Kombat, when he just uppercuts someone after he ice blasts them and it knocks their head fucking clean off, right out of the ballpark, dude. Think like that. So, that's what I'm getting out of this. Her ultimate, another big change, which I'll go over in just a second, so I realize it's out of order. Sejuani's other skills are getting reworked. They don't really specify how. The only one that's not really brought up is her Q, which is her charge. But they are going to give her Frost Armor, which, as they only say, as she charges into battle, it grants bonus resistances and slow immunity. The other thing that they're changing, they're taking out Flail of the Northern Winds, the big ol' move, and they're replacing that with Winter's Wrath, which is still a 2-part swing slam combo. But what this does is it lets Sejuani strike and stack Frost in any direction, while Bristle continues to move around the battlefield. So it sounds to me a little bit like they want to really enforce that they are two separate things, like Sejuani and her boar. I don't know if they're ever going to have some sort of mechanic where they separate from each other or anything like that, but they are trying to sit there and act like they have different things. Because if you look right here, Frost Armor now protects Sejuani, well, her boar, in parentheses. So it makes me wonder maybe if they're trying to treat them as two separate things, like the person and the boar. So we'll see how that goes. I don't know. And then her ultimate, Sejuani's ultimate, Glacial Prison. What it is now is it no longer stuns the entire enemy team, but it turns the battleground around its explosion into a slowing zone that gives Sejuani's warband time to get into Frost's stacking range. So it drops an enormous slowing field around the impact point. Now what they failed to mention here, which they mentioned way below in the comments when they were answering questions, is that Sejuani's ultimate does still stun the first target it hits. It is not completely not stun anymore. It only stuns the first target it hits. So do remember that. It's not just not a stun at all. Let's head on to Maokai. Maokai is being changed because Riot sat there and felt like Maokai was very all around good. He wasn't ever a champion that was like, holy shit, this is the perfect time to pick Maokai. Or you wouldn't look at a team and be like, wow, Maokai is pretty terrible here. He was always just a solid tank that was always pretty okay for the job. But they wanted to change that. They wanted to make it so there were specific situations where you would want to pick Maokai and where you wouldn't want to. Now, what they're changing is his saplings, his passive, and his ultimate. They do not mention changing his other abilities at all, but those three they are changing. So let's start off. Saplings will deal more damage when tossed into a brush, giving them the strategic value as little sentries, and adding new considerations to Maokai's jungle clears and where he chooses to fight. So if you sapling in bushes, it will do more damage, meaning you would probably want to try and fight in bushes. And also, you can use this to your advantage when you're clearing your jungle to make your saplings do more damage. So Maokai may be seeing a return back to his home in the forest where he's back with his tree brothers. But you know what? Maybe he doesn't want to, murder his own kind. I have no idea. Or maybe he doesn't even want to be amongst them. Maybe he still just wants to be top lane. I don't know. But that is how the saplings changed. And one thing I want to mention here as well is that there was a large leak a while back on Reddit that was showing things like the Xayah and Rakan were coming out. They mentioned the Harpy and the Phoenix in the leak. They mentioned Zack's change, which you will see next when I'm talking about Zack. They mentioned Maokai changes. They mentioned a bunch of skins and things like that. Now, one thing that's been kind of alarming is that all of those leaks have proven to be true. So far, every single one has been proven to be accurate. So I'm wondering, because in that leak, they were saying that Maokai would get sticky bombs. Because do remember, Maokai's saplings do not deal impact damage anymore. They only deal damage on the explosion. So I'm wondering if that will actually make it to the live game where Maokai's saplings stick on people if he hits them with the sapling. So we'll see if that comes in. I have no idea. Next up is Maokai's Sap Magic, which is his passive, where he sits there and goes and just slurps the magic off of people. Not literally. But what it does is basically Maokai gets a stacking buff that when it stacks all the way up, he auto-attacks someone and it heals him for a large amount of his health. What they are changing this to is that it now has a cooldown, and while Maokai can still speed it up through his own spell casts, it does not stack from a champion just casting spells in his vicinity. It will only stack when a champion hits Maokai with the spell. So you cannot be healing as much anymore. And do keep in mind, damage over time champions like Cassiopeia's Poison or Teemo's Poison do not give it multiple stacks. So this will actually be leaving him more vulnerable against the basic attack top laners. Think Kled or Fiora or Tryndamere or even Gnar maybe, if you want to play it like that. But, on the other hand, Maokai will be a better pick into champions such as Karthus or Corki, who spam a lot of abilities, thus getting him to be able to use his passive quite a lot more frequently. Now, the biggest and arguably the most influential and interesting change of all of Maokai's new kit is his ultimate. His old ultimate was Vengeful Maelstrom, and what that did was it made this big ring around him. You know, if you want a champion that you could marry, you could play Maokai, so you could put a ring on it. But they're taking that away, so sorry all you tree lovers, you cannot marry this champion anymore. What this new ultimate does is it's called Nature's Grasp, and it summons a lane-wide wall of roots that will slowly advance forward. And every time, or the first time, not every time, the first time these roots come into contact with an enemy champion, it will root them. Now, thinking about this ultimate, you can imagine that it has absolutely ridiculous team fighting potential. It takes away some of Maokai's tankiness because his ultimate was part of why he was so ridiculously tanky, but it adds to his overall ability to have this massive zoning threat and also provides so much more crowd control to a team. So, I can imagine you would just want your team to corral people into that and try and fight around it. But we'll see how that goes when it makes it into the game, because I'm excited to see all of these, because some of these tank updates seem really fun. But moving on, we need to get to Zac now. Zac is, again, another champion, kind of like Maokai, where it's only some of his abilities being changed, not all of them. So they are keeping his E, which is his elastic slingshot. They're keeping his where he just plops and blubbers on you and explodes. And I believe they're keeping his passive, but they are changing his ultimate and his flubber fists, his little pa. You know, oh, I just punched my mic. But they are changing those. Now, stretching strikes is his flubber fist. They are changing that quite a lot, actually. They're making it so when Zac uses the ability, he will reach out and it sticks onto the first enemy he hits. And then once he latches onto something, his next basic attack with his other hand will smack something and stick onto it as well. So after he has two things stuck on each of his hand, he will bring them together and smack them together. So that's how he does it. He hits one with the ability, then his next auto attack gets the other one, and then they go whoop and smack right in the middle. So that is how his new key will work. His ultimate is also getting a little change, and they're changing it so you can either cast it and let it go and it will still, you know, do a little explosion and knock everything back, doing some damage. Or you can hold down the key and channel it for just a second, because you turn into a puddle during this ultimate duration. And when you hold it down, you will stay in puddle form for at least a second. And if you stay in that puddle form for at least a second, anything on you when you release the ability key, any enemy champion or any enemy at all will be scooped up into Zac, and he can apparently just move them somewhere. I don't know exactly how it works. They specifically say on release, Zac scoops up every enemy on top of him and schleps them all over to a target location. So, that is how that ultimate works, and that is all the Zac changes. Moving on, we are going to the items right now. The Adaptive Helm and the Gargoyle Stoneplate are the two actual new items, not the ones being changed, but the new ones, and I'm not going to go over specifically everything about them numbers-wise, but I will tell you what they do. Adaptive Helm basically fills the role for magic damage, or against magic damage, I should say, because it's a durability item, that a Frozen Heart or a Randuin's Omen does for the physical damage dealers. Basically, what Adaptive Helm is there to do is to make it so the consistent magic damage dealers have an answer to them. Like, you can build this against, say, again, a Cassiopeia, or, you know, your Teemo, your Karthus, your Corki, your Ziggs. You can build this item against those champions, because what it does is it actually will make you take less damage from subsequent casts of an ability with the same name. So say a Ziggs bouncing bombs you, and then within the next couple seconds bouncing bombs you again, it will do less damage. So that's how that item works. Then you have the Gargoyle Stoneplate, which just gives you resistances, but when you're around 3 or more people, gives you double those resistances, and it also has an active. When you are around, 1 or 2 people, it will increase your health by 40% and give you 60% less damage dealt. When you are around 3 or more people, it will give you 100% more health, but you will still do 60% less damage. So basically, this item fills another role that no item really gives right now. It fills the slot where someone who wants to do nothing but team fight, like 5v5, nothing but team fight. They don't want to do damage. They just want to live and take damage. That is what this item is for. Now, as you can see, they are having Spirit Visage. Let me just highlight this. Spirit Visage, Sunfire Cape, Dead Man's Plate, Randuin's Omen, and Guardian's Angel all right in this area. They are all receiving somewhat changes. Once again, if you guys want to see the specific numbers, go check out Red Mercy's video. But basically, the general theme is that they're upping the resistances and lowering the health. Now, the reason for this is because they want these items to be more appealing for actual tanks and not champions like Fizz or Echo, which are not meant to be played like a tank, but people are playing them like tanks. And the reason this is so impactful is because, hold on, how can I word this? They're making it so health, or not they're making it so, health as a stat is more effective early. So if you can get an item that has 500 health very early, you are going to be tanky, naturally. That's how it works. So by upping the resistances, that makes these more appealing for actual tanks, where, you know, you can't just buy Dead Man's Plate on Echo and be instantly unkillable anymore. And if that doesn't make a lot of sense, think about playing against, like, the last time you played against a Swain that just got, like, 1 kill in lane. You're like, whatever, it's just a Swain, he only got 1 kill, we can handle him, right? But he gets his Rod of Ages. 13 minutes into the game, he's got his Rod of Ages, and you maybe go try and gank him, or you go try and fight over a dragon, and he's there. You find that this guy is absolutely unkillable. Why is that? He doesn't have any resistances. It's not like he's, you know, full build and has 250 of each resistance. No, it's because he has a lot of health. That's all it is. He's got the health from the Rod of Ages, and then he's also got the regen from his ultimate. Now, I know this is an extreme example, but it's a very good one because it helps you understand that you do not need resistances specifically to be tanky. Because you can get these items, and before you've built your damage, you can't deal enough damage to get through that much health. So that is why that makes sense. And with the resistances going up, the armor penetration items are being adjusted as well. So think about it this way. A Last Whisper penetrates 45% of bonus armor. If there is more armor in the game, that item will also be inadvertently buffed. So they are nerfing the armor penetration items, and then they're changing that power and putting it over into crit and lifesteal items. Now the next item here is a Guardian Angel, and what they're changing with this is they're making it more appealing for carries and mages and assassins, stuff like that, rather than tanks. Because you would see a tank with a Guardian Angel and be like, fuck, he's literally unkillable. Because what Guardian Angel does is it revives you with 30% of your maximum health. What they're changing about it is they're making it so it's only 50% of your base health. So, say, you know, you kill a tank with the Guardian Angel and he comes back to life with 15% of his health or 20% of his health. Not really a big deal. You kill a carry with Guardian Angel, he can come back into the fight if he has like 1 lifesteal item and he revives with almost half of his health. It's definitely much more geared towards carries now, so that is good. And the last couple things we're going to talk about is team contributions. They wanted to make it so people like split pushers or tanks or supports can really feel more glory when they're playing the game. They want it to be more known that these people are having an effect in the game. And I don't blame them, because sometimes when you're playing those roles, you don't feel like you're doing a whole lot. So what they're doing here is they're changing it to make it so it's much more apparent that they are having an effect. And by they're doing this by making it so there's a special effect around the caster of summoner spells like Exhaust or Ignite or Heal or Barrier, or probably not Barrier because it's pretty damn obvious who's using Barrier. And they're also doing it with items like Mikhail's Crucible, or maybe a Redemption. I don't know if they probably will, but they probably will. Or Locket of the Iron Solari, or what are some other items that you can... I guess Randuin's in a sense, but not like too much. But they're making it so it's pretty clear who used those and what they did. And they're also changing the end of game stats, showing you things like how long you've CC'd enemies for, how effective your warding and counter warding was, or how much damage you have mitigated or absorbed by shielding your allies or giving them resistances. They are going to be adding stuff like deaths you've prevented or your healing done to your allies, which seems kind of weird because they've already got that, or healing done, I guess. and your damage mitigated on allies, which that one sound kind of weird to me because it's like, well, you literally just said how much damage you mitigated via shields and resistances. So I don't know what they're trying to hit at with that one. We'll see soon. And the last thing here is the support quests. They are making it so support items are more appealing for supports. They always have this issue where people would probably build Frost Queen's Claim on mid laners, and they don't want that. They want these to be specifically support items. So they're trying to think of ways to really change these to make it so, well, you have to, you know, really focus on the gold gain aspect of the item to get the support quest finished. Basically, think of like On the Hunt. You know, Rengar and Kha'Zix, towards the end of the game, one of them kills the other, they get a special bonus. That is a quest in League of Legends, and they're giving that to these support items. For the Ancient Coin, on top of changing the item to make it so, instead of just being super boring and whenever a minion dies around you, you get golden, and no, that's what you get, you just get gold. They're making it so when a minion dies around you that you did not kill yourself, will occasionally drop a coin that will either restore mana or gold when you pick it up. And so that's what they're changing, and after you've collected enough coins, you will complete the quest. And when you complete the quest for the Ancient Coin, you get an elixir that will instantly grant you a skill point when you drink it. You will still have a maximum of 18 skill points per game, but this means you will finish leveling your abilities when you're level 17 instead. For Relic Shield, when you finish the quest, which I imagine you finish the quest just by bopping minions and transferring the gold to your allies, being like, hey, I got you, and they're just like, whoop. So I imagine you finish the quest by doing that. You get a shield that regenerates when you're out of combat from that item, so that's pretty good. Thematically fits the item. And then for Spell Thief's Edge, which I imagine you finish that quest by, you know, auto-attacking and gaining the extra gold, or using your abilities and using the charges, like, and getting the extra gold that way, doing the extra damage. The Tribute, which is the effect, the extra damage it gives. The Tribute procs will grant a burst of movement speed. So I'm curious to see how they're going to make this not appealing for mid laners, because that sounds pretty fucking good for some mid laners. I don't know. But we'll find out when they put it into the game. And that is all of the mid-season changes of this patch. Like I said, if you want the item specifics, go check out Red Mercy's video. If you want to read these yourself, instead of just listen to me, you know, rap at you on screen, you can definitely go over to Surrender at 20, do some reading. And if you guys enjoy this kind of video, let me know, because I like reading these things. It helps me enforce what I can know and understand to teach it to you guys as well. And with all that said, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I love you guys. I hope you have a wonderful day. Peace!